Hello and welcome to Principles of Microeconomics. This is Module 5.2 and we will be discussing perfect competition. Perfectly competitive markets have a few key characteristics. First, there are many buyers and sellers. Secondly, we're thinking about a market where the goods that are produced are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter who the buyer buys the goods from. And lastly, firms can freely enter and exit the market without any additional costs. Now, these characteristics are going to tell us that no single firm or buyer can exert any type of price control in this market. This tells us that all firms and all buyers are what we call price takers. So no single one of them can individually influence the price. Therefore, what this tells us is that for the firm to maximize revenue, they can only change quantity that they produce. They cannot change the price by themselves. As you recall from our last module, when we were talking about the profit maximizing point of production, when a firm is trying to maximize its profits, it's going to operate at a point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. This is going to tell us that if marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, the best thing to do is to produce more. If marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, the best thing to do is to produce less. So let's work through an example here together to understand this in greater detail. So here we have firm A, which sells ping pong balls. And the following table is going to describe their revenues and costs. As you can see here, we have the total quantity that they produce going from 0 to 9. The price of ping pong balls. Remember, firm A is one of many firms in this market. They take the price as given. They can't influence the price on their own. So total revenue is going to be price times quantity, which gives us the following total revenue from producing 0 to 9 units. And total cost, remember, is the sum of fixed costs and variable costs as reported by the firm. So with this, we want to calculate profit, marginal revenue, and marginal cost. You can pause the video here and try to do this on your own, and then come back for the answers and explanations. So, what does this look like? Well, remember, our profit is going to be total revenue minus total cost. So to find our profit at each point along the production line, we simply subtract total revenue from total cost. Now, our marginal revenue, remember, is the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity produced. So we're looking at the change in revenue over the change in output. Our marginal cost is telling us the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity. So here we look at the change in total cost divided by the change in output. Now remember, the profit maximizing point of production, so maximizing profits, will be the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. If we look at our table, the point where that occurs has been highlighted in green, where marginal revenue is 3 and marginal cost is 3. So this occurs where our output is 5 units. So the firm is producing 5 ping pong balls, and at that point, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Profits are $5.50, and this will be the optimal point of production. Now, what you can observe here clearly is that marginal revenue stays constant, regardless of how much the firm is producing. That is because the firm is a price taker, because we're talking about a perfectly competitive market. So only under perfect competition will the marginal revenue stay constant and equal to the price. Now, what happens if the price increases to $4? Now the price is $4, so we will have a new profit and a new marginal revenue because our total revenue has changed. Our marginal cost will not change because our total cost has not changed. So if we calculate profit, marginal revenue, and our marginal costs, we see that now the optimal point of production where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost will be when the firm produces 9 ping pong balls and marginal revenue is 4, and marginal cost is 4. So if we represent this graphically, as you can see, here is our marginal cost line, which is upward sloping, and our first marginal revenue line when the price is $3. As you can see, and as I have mentioned, it is a flat line. On the other hand, when the price increases to $4, the firm is a price taker, so it is increasing its marginal revenue. Now, when the price is $3, we are producing at point A, and we are producing 5 units. On the other hand, when the price rises to $4, we now produce at point B, and the firm is producing 9 ping pong balls. Next, we want to talk about the decisions of the firm in the short run versus the long run. So when the firm is deciding what to do in the short run, it is deciding whether or not it should produce or should it temporarily shut its production down. Now, it's important to note that a temporary shutdown is not the same thing as exiting the market. What's happening here is that temporarily the firm has decided to suspend production. This is going to occur when the price of the good is going to be below the average variable cost. What this is telling us is that the revenue that they can generate is going to be not enough to cover their variable costs. In the short run, the firm still has to pay their fixed costs. So therefore, it is going to base its decision on what is happening with variable costs. So as you can see here, in this curve, we have the variable cost and the average total cost and the marginal cost. So at any price, we'll call this P1, below P1, the firm is going to shut down temporarily. At any price above P1, it's going to continue to produce. So therefore, what we observe in the short run is that at any price above P1, the firm will produce according to the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Therefore, this is the short-run supply curve. Any point below the average variable cost, the firm is shutting down, and there is no production. So therefore, we can say that the short-run supply curve for the firm is going to be the marginal cost curve at any point above average variable cost. Now, what about the long run? In the long run, the firm has to decide between continuing to produce or permanently exiting the market. So, if it wants to exit the market, it is going to make no profits. It means that exiting the market, total revenue is equal to 0, and total cost is equal to 0. Therefore, the firm will exit if total revenue is less than total cost. Or in other words, the price is below average total cost. On the other hand, remember, there's free entry and exit in this market. Does a firm want to enter the market? Well, it will be faced with positive revenue and positive costs. So the firm will enter if it's gaining more revenue than it is costing the firm to be in the market. So the firm will enter if the price is above average total cost. So the firm's long-run supply curve is going to be the marginal cost curve above average total cost. So at any point where the marginal revenue line crosses the marginal cost line and corresponds to our prices, P1, P2, etc., all the way up, this is going to reflect the points of production for the firm, the long-run supply curve. Any point below where marginal cost is below average total cost, they're going to exit the market. Now we want to discuss how the firm can measure profit and loss in the short run versus the long run. Profit, remember, is total revenue minus total cost. So if we look at total revenue as price times quantity and total cost as average total cost times quantity, the profit equation is going to be price minus average total cost times quantity. So therefore, if we see the marginal revenue line crossing marginal cost at a point such as point P, here we see that the price is greater than average total cost. So we're producing at, we'll say, Q1, and this area right here will represent the profits for the firm. On the other hand, if we see a point where the price is below average total cost, where marginal revenue crosses marginal cost, and we're producing at, let's call this Q2, in this scenario, we are experiencing a loss. So when price is greater than average total cost, we have profits. When the price is below average total cost, the firm is experiencing a loss. The long-run equilibrium is going to occur at the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost and the price is equal to average total cost. What we observe in the market is, in fact, that when we have positive economic profits in the short run, over the long run, firms are going to enter into this market to try to take advantage of those profits. By doing so, they drive down the price of the good, and therefore, they will continue to enter up until the point where the price is equal to average total cost. On the flip side, if a market is experiencing a loss, firms will exit that market, and that will cause the price to rise. As the price rises, firms are going to continue adjusting until we get to a point where the price is equal to average total cost. When the price is equal to average total cost, there's no incentive for the firm to enter or exit the market. So therefore, the long-run equilibrium will tell us that we're producing at the profit maximizing point of production, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And this corresponds to the point where the price is equal to average total cost. So therefore, we have zero economic profits. As you can see on this graph, this is going to correspond to a point such as point A. And we'll call this equilibrium E. Price is equal to average total cost, and marginal revenue is equal to our marginal cost. Now, what happens if we have a shift in the demand? Let's consider an example where we have an increase in demand. As you can see here, moving from an equilibrium such as point A to an equilibrium such as point B yields a movement along the supply curve. This causes an increase in the price of the good. Now remember, when we look at the demand and supply model, this is for the whole market. We want to relate to what's happening in the market as a whole with all of our buyers and sellers to what's happening for an individual firm, firm A. So therefore, for firm A, what they observe is that there's an increase in demand. This causes an increase in the price. So therefore, for firm A, this tells firm A that their marginal revenue has risen. Previously, they were operating at a point such as point A, and now they are operating at a point such as point B. So what happens is that in the short run, firm A is experiencing positive profits. We can see here that this at point B, the average total cost is below P2, so we are experiencing positive profits. Now, since firm A is one of many, we're going to assume that if firm A has positive profits, then every other firm in this industry is also experiencing positive economic profits in the short run. So what then happens in the long run? In the long run, other firms observe that there is positive economic profits occurring in this market, and they try to enter. As they enter into this market, the supply curve shifts, increasing the number of sellers. As the supply curve shifts, and we have more and more sellers entering into this market, this causes a downward pressure on the price. We move from P2 back to P1. We have an adjustment in the number of firms in this market until we get to a point where we have reached P1. So we move from what was previously point A to point B, and now to point C, the new long-run equilibrium. So that for firm A, what they are experiencing is that previously they had an increase in the price, but now, as new firms enter in the long run over time, the price returns back to its original level. So the marginal revenue is also returning back to their original point. So we continue to have this adjustment process until we move, remember, from point A to point B, and now back to point A, or equilibrium C. So what we observe is that with the increase in demand, in the short run, firms experience positive economic profits. But in the long run, as more firms enter into the market to take advantage of those positive economic profits, we adjust, the price changes, price lowers, and we return back to a point of zero economic profits in the long run. Thank you so much for joining me in Module 5.2 on perfect competition.